hard. No one is promised an easy ride. Every man faces challenges in life. Some are seasons of strength, while others feel like you're just hanging on, trying to catch your breath. But no man was meant to fight alone. Every fighter needs a corner, a place where you're strengthened, where truth is spoken, where you're reminded of who you are. This is CornerMen, a place for Christian men who want to grow stronger, not just on the outside, but in character and faith. Honest conversations anchored in biblical ground. Real encouragement for the battles we all face. Each episode will discuss issues that men are dealing with. We'll hear from men who have walked the road and unpacked the practical ways to live out their faith where it really matters. At home, at work, and in the quiet moments of life when no one else sees. So wherever you're watching from, welcome to CornerMen. Take a breath from the issues of life. Reset your strength as this week we cover the topic of overcoming.
Yes. So definitely struggled overcoming addiction. So addiction to alcohol mainly was the crux of it. And did I hide it? Yes. I hid it and thought I hid it well. But it's amazing how things come out, you know. I'd love to say I had the courage to bring it to the light myself, but I didn't. And actually from stealing money off a close friend to fuel my drinking and gambling, she was wonderful and decided to tell my Connect group leader. So I got brought to the light that way. And yeah, I would have loved to have said I was brave enough to get it out there, but so thankful that it did get out. And sometimes you think you're so shameful. You don't want anyone to know your deep, dark secrets. That you don't want to know what I've been up to. And the last thing I wanted to tell was then my fiance. So Amy, who is now my wife, which is a very wonderful story. But yeah, I was so shameful that I didn't want to tell her. And I'm so grateful for a close friend that brought it to the light, told my Connect group leader, and then I started on a bit of a journey. Yeah, I think you've got a pretty big issue when you can't stop. I tried many, many times to stop drinking, to stop gambling, stop taking drugs, stop living the life that I was living. And look, sometimes I'd get through a couple of weeks and think, I'm on, this is gonna work. But when this voice in your head won't shut up until you've had a couple of beers, you've got a pretty bad problem. As much as I wanted to get help, I was too shameful. I was so down the rabbit hole that I thought I couldn't get out. The shame just continued to pour on me, and I tried to hide it more and more, and it just got worse. You're really struggling when you're sitting opposite a pokie machine by yourself, drunk, and you've continually put your pay packet into that poker machine. And you know what? If I won, great. All that meant was I'm going to get drugs, and then I'm going to end up at the casino, and I'm just going to take it over and go longer and go harder. So yeah, I'm pretty sure you'd know that's a pretty bad problem. It's a great tool of the enemy, right? Some of the toughest moments in my life, I was riddled with shame. Shame is a big robber of your joy. I think for me, what was really challenging was I was wrestling with the fact that I'm saved, right? I've been saved. So therefore, why am I not healed? And that was it was a tough wrestle. Not only was I saved, I was serving at my church. I was a connect group leader. I was a volunteer. I was waving people on a Sunday morning into their car spots, right? I was experiencing the Holy Spirit like I've never felt before at youth on a Friday night in tears because he was so gracious that he would love me just the way I am. However, how bad was this addiction that in that moment I'm in the presence of God in awe, saturated by his love. And within an hour of driving home, I've pulled into a bottle-o and I've grabbed myself a 6-pack of beer. And you think there's a bit of shame attached to that? And then you're drinking those beers and then you're pulling over and then you're pulling into a bar and you want more beer and then you want to drink more and then you want to gamble. And I was just in the presence of God. So shame, oh man, I'm saved. Aren't I meant to be healed? It was confusing, you know? It was so confusing. I knew I loved Jesus and I was so grateful that he still loved me, even though I was doing what I was doing. So did I want anyone to know? Man, that was the last thing I wanted. I didn't want anyone to know what I was up to. So I kept it hidden. Yes, surrender happened. And I mentioned it before, not because I was brave and not because I put my hand up and said, I need help. Surrender came for me in the way of grace, in the way that a friend saw how much I was struggling, that I was obviously in a pretty deep and dark hole, that I stole money from her to go gamble and drink. She would then bring that story to my Connect group leader, who would then call me, and I would have to call my fiance, Amy, and say, I've got some things I've got to tell you. And we were very blessed to have an amazing man who had gone through a similar struggle with gambling addiction. So my pastor, Darren Kiddo, who my wife and I love dearly to this day, who married us, just a little sneak peek, we did get there. That was a tough day, and I say this because it was a tough day for Amy. Addiction is one of those things that I've always known, it hurts me. And sometimes you don't realize how much it hurts people around you. Amy, myself, Darren, and my Connect group leader, Brendan Brown, were sitting in a room, and Darren said, you need to tell us everything. So this was the surrender. And I'm like, everything? He's like, everything. As hard as it was, I told her everything. Every little deep, dark secret that I had. The gambling, the drinking, the lying, the drugs. And every time I would mention something, it was like I was breaking her. There was a weight lifting off me, but there was a weight getting put on her. Even though we are married and we have been married for 18 years, it's still something that breaks me because she didn't deserve that, And I think addiction has that, where it's such a robber. And, this is this beautiful 21-year-old woman that just loved me. She just adored me. And I've then dumped all that on her. And Darren was brilliant. And he just turned to her and said, all right, you don't have to stick with this guy. You don't deserve this. We'll help him. We'll sort him out. This is your chance to, walk away. You didn't deserve any of this, but it's up to you. In that moment, she goes, where do we go from here? And that moment, I think, that true surrender, that true revealing of everything, my deep, dark secrets, and I'm talking everything. She still wanted to be with me. Wow. That was August 2007. And we got married in February 2008. Wow. Accountability is the key. It's such a key to, one, you got to get the vulnerability, the surrender, to get it off your chest, to talk about it, and then to be accountable. And to be accountable, I was very grateful for Darren. He gave me steps, individual steps that would allow me to be accountable for. With addiction, I think if you say, hey, I won't drink anymore, and then you want someone to be accountable for, it's like, well, how? So the great thing was I made really, in a way, little promises, lots of little promises that I had to be accountable for. I couldn't go to a bar. I couldn't go into a bottle-o. I wasn't allowed any money. So it was a little hard to get any alcohol when Amy had all my money and I was only allowed $3 a day, and I had to give her a receipt of the coffee that I was getting. Talk about eating some humble pie. I definitely had plenty of humble pie. Those steps allowed me to really starve the addiction. I didn't want to drink, but making that promise is quite heavy and big. But I'm not going to go to a bar. I'm not going to go to a bottle-o. I'm not going to borrow money. And then to not only do that, to then tell all the people in my world, even my boss at the time, don't lend me any money because I'm an alcoholic and I'll gamble it away. And sometimes you think you're gonna get sacked, or you think people are not gonna, like you, and you're gonna be shunned because you're being so open and honest. But unless you do that, it won't work. And you'd be surprised. The cool thing was my boss was more than happy to support me. It's amazing, humans. They surprise you. Who would have thought, I thought I was going to lose my job, yet he ended up becoming one of my closest friends because he also, had some struggles himself. So accountability is so important. I mean, obviously my wife, being so early on in the journey, she's been my person. She knows me like the back of my hand now. But I've always had accountability. I've had accountability with closest friends. My best friend, right at the beginning, said, I would never drink around you ever again. And he never has to this day. And other friends that would just know my story and just go, oh, well, I won't try and tempt him, especially early on in the journey. Unless you have someone that you can be absolutely vulnerable with and transparent with, you're probably going to fail. Accountability. Just, if you're thinking about a drink, just say it. I think some of the worst conversations I had with Amy was 6 months in. I said, I'm sorry, but I really want to drink. She goes, what? I'm like, oh, shivers. You think, I'm meant to be strong, right? Haven't I fixed this? It's only 6 months. I'm taking a day at a time. So as much as I would break, in a way, her for a moment, but then she realized, she goes, he's being honest. He's just telling me how he's feeling. And we got through that. And we got through it many other times as well, because it wasn't just that time. It was many times where I felt vulnerable and I felt weak. She would always say, just tell me. Because if you keep it in the dark and don't say anything, you're not accountable to anyone, guess what? You might make it through that day. And then it'll happen the next day and the next day. And before you know it, you've slipped up. And you don't want that. And I'm so grateful. From that day, in that room, in August in 2007, to this day, nothing. You know, no drinking, no alcohol, no drugs, no pornography, no nothing. She knew everything. So therefore, I made a promise to her. She, 21-year-old Amy went, where do we go from here? That was something that reminds me of, oh man, that's God's grace. And she's a gift. So don't stuff it up.